is here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. By the way, Mamdani in New York, he's loading up his administration with one Jew hater and Islamist after another. We're going to talk about that next hour with our friend Jon Levine, who's an outstanding reporter. But first, I did an interview today that will air on Sunday with our friend Dennis Prager. Dennis Prager had a horrific accident, and we talk about that in his brand new book, which is absolutely fabulous. Again, it'll air Sunday on Life, Liberty, and Levin. It's the first TV show he's doing that is airing, and he asked if I would do it. And so I interviewed him for 2 segments because he's not really able to do more than that. And then I decided in the middle of the interview, I'm going to bring him back the next Sunday, too, for 2 segments. What do you think about that, Rich? He's paralyzed from the shoulders down. And God must have been looking over him because he's not supposed to be alive. He was on a ventilator for a long period of time. Even now, doctors are amazed because he's breathing. He's got 80% of his breathing capacity back, but he shouldn't. Why? Because I said he's paralyzed from the shoulders down. There's a lot going on in your chest from the shoulders down. But I'll talk about that a little bit more later. It just really has affected me, that interview. That a man like this, who was struggling for his life, who's still struggling every single day, if you're paralyzed from the shoulders down, you can't really do anything without significant help. And in any event, it was really moving and touching, and his book is absolute genius. And he still wants to be involved in promoting the country and defending the country. Victor Davis Hanson, I'm not going to get into specifics. He and I speak every few days. He's a very dear friend of mine. He's been through hell too. And we almost lost him, to be perfectly honest with you. And he's still fighting. These are great patriots. Great people, great men, whose legacies will continue far into the future. And his families are and will be proud of them for their legacies. And that's important. We have people today on radio, TV, podcasters. I can't imagine their children will be very proud of them. Drop the F-bombs. this Tucker Carlson interview with Ambassador Huckabee. Ambassador Huckabee is such a class act, such a decent man. Remember, he was a pastor, a Baptist pastor. Kind, gentle in so many ways, thoughtful. Up against a very evil, indecent, disgraceful grifter. And I believe there's a reason for this other than mental illness and emotional obsessions. I truly do. His ties to Qatar are inexplainable, but for support he must be receiving from them. Look, that's my view. Support in one form or another. But in part of the interview, he's talking about, listen to this, America, that the people of Israel, majority of whom are Jews, should all be taking DNA tests to determine whether, in fact, their ancestry lived in that part of the world. What do you think about that, Rich? That's pretty sick. And, of course, Huckabee said, well, what about people who've converted to Judaism? And what about... It's the question that's the problem. Jews should take DNA tests to determine if that's their homeland? I do now understand why he's attracted to the Third Reich. I do now understand why he's attracted to guests who promote Hitler. I get it now. I really do. That's his mindset. In addition to being a mouthpiece for Qatar, an operator for Qatar PSYOP operation. The guy's mind really is, in my view, set in the Third Reich. And he gets worse by the day. Worse by the day. I want you to remember Hitler murdered 2 million Christians. I'm not even talking about during the course of war. He exterminated 2 million Christians as he was exterminating 6 million Jews. The Aryan race. He didn't say Christians. He talked about the Aryan race. And we can go on, of course. The Islamists, these terror groups that are funded by Qatar, many of them, are killing Christians in Africa, Christians throughout the Middle East. And how dare he talk about how there are more Christians in Qatar and in Arab countries than in Israel. Everybody knows that's a flat-out lie. But he repeats it. He repeats it. You keep repeating the big lie, Goebbels said, and people will begin to believe it. I suspect he's studied this very, very thoroughly, given the nature of his guests and the nature of his statements. The fact is that he's doing grave damage to the Republican Party. I fear he's doing grave damage to our midterm elections. He's doing grave damage to the Trump administration, whether they realize it or not. He is. Grave damage. And no amount of his attempting to intimidate the ambassador, to intimidate my stepson, is going to work. He's a scumbag. That's what he is. I don't understand why anybody, quote unquote, debates this guy. It's like going into a mental institution and debating somebody who's banging off the padded walls. And I feel bad for them. This punk was born into wealth, went to private schools, never public schools. Remember when he used to wear that bow tie? He was taking 50 sides of every issue. He's worked in virtually every media platform, and he's failed. But now he's succeeding because he's got the formula figured out. That there are enough people in this country and overseas for sure who will watch him, listen to him, even pay him. As long as he wears effectively that brown shirt and those black boots. Effectively. just a disgrace. The Supreme Court decision, let's move on, is also a disgrace on the tariff issue. It doesn't matter if you're for tariffs, against tariffs, you don't know about tariffs, you don't care about tariffs. It's irrelevant. I'm talking about the rule of law. I texted the president, I don't think he'd mind my telling you this, yesterday or the day before, and I said, the court's taking a long time for one of two reasons. Either they can't settle on a single rationale, and you've got a whole bunch of concurring opinions, or they do have a strong majority, but they can't figure out what the majority opinion should be. And guess what, Mr. Producer? I was right on both counts. So let's begin there. Why is that the case? Because the court shouldn't have been involved in this at all, other than to take up the case, reverse the lower court, and get out of the case. Because this is not a clear-cut constitutional issue. It's not a clear-cut separation of powers issue. It's not just a quote-unquote indirect tax under Article 1. It's also clearly a foreign policy matter, and it affects foreign policy under Article 2. Article 1, Congress. Article 2, the President. There's no bifurcating the two. Tariffs on international commerce have been going on since the beginning of this republic, just so you know. But only Congress can lay taxes. But only the president can run foreign policy. And so what the court should have done is avoided this. Because what it wound up doing is issuing a bunch of really contradictory and confusing opinions where they tried to come up with one position, which was basically, the tariffs under this specific law in 1977 involving emergencies doesn't apply. Which is ridiculous to me, because it does in fact authorize the president to regulate commerce. Chief Justice said, well, that may be true, but there's too many words between regulate and commerce, and something to that effect, and he found that disturbing. But now what do we have? It's a messy decision. It's a problematic decision. It's now an unresolved issue. They basically ruled that under this statute and this statute alone, the president can't do what he did. Okay, so what about the other statutes? And the rationale they gave is incoherent. Absolutely incoherent, because they got involved in politics and policy. Even though they exclaim that we have not gotten into policy, because they have. The two dissenting opinions, of which Alito agreed with, Clarence Thomas was brilliant, as usual. He goes through the history of tariffs and commercial regulation, international commercial regulation, and presidential powers. And Brett Kavanaugh was absolutely outstanding. He went through the law, he went through the Constitution, and he went through the arguments of the other side, and he said, this is actually quite simple and clear-cut. And by the way, America, if Congress disagrees with a president using his power to impose tariffs, Congress has the power of the purse to cut off any funding for the implementation of his tariffs. But it's never come up. They've never done it. He'd obviously veto it, so they don't have enough votes to take it. But that's the way the system works. It's supposed to work. You got 9 lawyers, 6 of whom decided that they would substitute their opinions for that of the president in dealing with international commerce, diplomacy, foreign policy, national security, because John Roberts decided that this is a indirect tax under the power of the purse, Article 1, Congress. But it's more than that. And he knows it. So what was this decision? It was result-oriented. They had a result they wanted, and they came up with a bunch of cockamamie arguments. That's the truth. Now, I want to pursue this when we return, because it's very, very fundamental. This is a seminal decision, and yet it's absolutely convoluted and incoherent. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
As I posted earlier today, the Supreme Court majority today issued a very messy and problematic decision. Let me give you an example of the language here. Roberts, Chief Justice, announced the judgment of the court and delivered the opinion of the court with respect to parts 1, 2, and A1 and 2B, which Sotomayor, Kagan, Gorsuch, Barrett, and Jackson joined, and an opinion with respect to parts 2, A2, and 3, in which Gorsuch and Barrett joined. Gorsuch and Barrett filed concurring opinions. Kagan filed an opinion concurring in part and concurring in the judgment, in which Sotomayor and Jackson joined. Jackson filed an opinion concurring in part and concurring in the judgment. Get my drift, Mr. Producer? How preposterous. How preposterous. The reason is they should never have gotten into the substance of this, and it became a quagmire. The majority had a problem, which I said it would. Should the court move in this direction? Tariffs are more than indirect taxes. They do, in fact, impact foreign affairs and national security matters and have been used for those specific purposes. Therefore, the question is not who has the power to tax per se, but a more complicated question about where the separation of powers is. The majority apparently chose to duck the question and stick with the indirect tax characterization and focus on a single statute, which is outrageous. It could not figure out how to bifurcate the Congress's power of the purse from the president's foreign policy powers, so it redefined the issue to reach the outcome. And even then, they argued over the rationale. So we're left with even a worse ambiguity. One, if only Congress can raise taxes, even indirectly, then how does the court justify the entire regulatory state in the executive branch that raises indirect taxes? Putting aside the specific statute, it appears the president is still free to raise or cut tariffs under other statutes. So what was the purpose of this whole process? And the court succeeded only in creating confusion going forward. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin, radio's principled patriot. Call in now at 877-381-3811.
President Trump on this outrageous ruling, and I'll spend some more time on this, on Life, Liberty, and Levin. And by the way, we're getting record numbers there. I hope you'll join us tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. We have Steve Moore, and we're going to get deeply into so-called affordability because this is a big issue. The president's going to talk a lot about it next Tuesday at the State of the Union, and I want to really dig into this myself and with Steve Moore and Rich Goldberg, one of the great experts on Iran. There's going to be a decision made one way or another, and it's not going to be long from now. So it's important we talk about that. And then Sunday, I mentioned, we have Dennis Prager. I don't think you're going to want to miss that, as well as America's governor. This guy's unbelievable, Ron DeSantis. And they've already pushed through the House in Florida the elimination of the property tax for homesteaders. That is actual residents. And he pointed out on the program, that's about 1/3 of the people who pay the property tax. You have commercial property taxes. You also have taxes from a lot of tourists who come in and so forth. He said they're in a great position to do this. He wants to get it on the ballot. You know, this is a man that has, 2 years left in his governorship, a year and a half, and he doesn't let up. You look at him compared to, say, Newsom, who's on the internet all day, he's overseas all day, he's on TV all day, and he can't even get water into the fire hydrants. He can't even get water into the fire hydrants, where DeSantis is handling hurricanes and water issues and everything else, and you see the difference. So two really great shows, I think, Saturday and Sunday, Life, Liberty, and Levin, 8 p.m. Eastern. I would encourage you to set your DVRs. It's the easiest thing to do. Set your DVRs. President Trump today at the White House on the Supreme Court ruling on tariffs. Again, it was a really ugly bunch of decisions. You know what it reminded me of? Those of you who've gone to law school, it reminds me of a bunch of young law review editors sitting in a circle, say in the law library, trying to prove who's smarter than the other, dancing on the head of a pin on semantics. Even Barrett's concurring opinion, she's defending her approach from Gorsuch's criticism. I'm going, what the hell is this? What is this, really? What a mess. Barrett is very thin-skinned, I've decided. Very thin-skinned. Jackson's very stupid. And of course, I call Roberts, Hollywood Roberts, because he cares very much about what the press says about him. Friend of Thomas Friedman, who is a self-hating moron. But here's the president tonight, or this afternoon. Cut one, go.
The Supreme Court's ruling on tariffs is deeply disappointing, and I'm ashamed of certain members of the court, absolutely ashamed, for not having the courage to do what's right for our country. I'd like to thank and congratulate Justices Thomas, Alito, and Kavanaugh for their strength and wisdom and love of our country, which is right now very proud of those justices. When you read the dissenting opinions, there's no way that anyone can argue against them. There's no way. Foreign countries that have been ripping us off for years are ecstatic. They're so happy. And they're dancing in the streets, but they won't be dancing for long, that I can assure you. The Democrats on the court are thrilled, but they will automatically vote no. They're an automatic no, just like in Congress. They're an automatic no. They're against anything that makes America strong, healthy, and great again. They also are a, frankly, disgrace to our nation, those justices. They're an automatic no, no matter how good a case you have. It's a no.
And he's right. And I want you to think about something, ladies and gentlemen, how the Constitution was contorted again and again and again in order to create a legal imprimatur for the New Deal. When you step back, the New Deal has no defense in the Constitution, none whatsoever. And so they threatened to pack the court. The justices were old. Eventually, FDR replaced most of them, but they were intimidated. And they reversed course. They turned on a dime. And they started approving all these New Deal policies and programs that went much, much farther than these tariffs could even be thought of going, imagined of going. And they turned the law inside out and the logic inside out and the Constitution inside out to advance that agenda. They've done the same for Democrats over the decades. And here we have a straightforward issue on tariffs. Now, a lot of people don't like tariffs. A lot of people like tariffs. A lot of people don't know about tariffs. That's not the issue. And what was done today, in my view, was a very serious usurpation of the two elected branches of government by a handful of lawyers, not even 9, 6, interposing themselves in matters of international economics, indirect taxation, foreign policy, national security. And what did they come forward with? A burp. But a burp that has an effect of creating confusion, creating more litigation, more cases in front of these radical activist trial court judges. As I've said before, they took a case where they couldn't cut the baby in half, and yet they've tried to do it. They're not solemn-like in any respect. The fact is, despite all the propaganda from some lawyers, from trade groups, from businesses, people in the media and so forth and so on, the president has very broad powers in foreign policy. And the idea that a tariff is not as related to foreign policy as it is to an indirect tax is ridiculous. And let me explain. The reason they claim it's a power of a purse issue is because they argue if the president, say, puts a 10% tax on products coming from Botswana, then that increases the price of that product when it's imported into the United States. The importers pass that price on to you and me, Mr. and Mrs. America. Therefore, it's an indirect tax. Now, that may or may not be true, but you can see how many steps you have to go through, how convoluted that is to reach that result. Maybe it's a right result, maybe it's a wrong result. I don't much care. But when it comes to foreign policy, it's a direct result. The foreign policy powers of the president under Article 2, Section 8. It has a direct impact. Direct. Furthermore, this court, the Supreme Court, in the 30s, bent over backwards to allow Congress to delegate its core functions, that of legislating, to bureaucrats. So we create these bureaucratic offices and divisions and buildings, and it would delegate its core function of legislating to these entities in the executive branch. Now, how does that not violate separation of powers? So you literally have unelected individuals and agencies created by Congress delegated the power to legislate and hence raise taxes, not indirectly, but directly through the regulations. How is that constitutional? And of course, not a single justice wanted to discuss that because the whole house of cards comes collapsing down. Doesn't it? But it's a point I continue to make because it's important. There is no need for the court to do this. None. And the president does have other statutory options. And I'm sure he'll use them, and I'm going to talk about them on TV on Sunday. But even there, what if somebody brings a lawsuit? Wait a minute. You know what statute is the broadest that he can use, Mr. Producer? Ever hear of Smoot-Hawley? 1930. A lot of people say the Smoot-Hawley Act of 1930 helped cause the Depression. May well have, but it won't here. And it gives the president enormous power to impose up to 100% tariffs. My guess is ultimately that's where they'll go. That perhaps they relied on the wrong statute, but perhaps they relied on a court that they thought had enough intelligence and integrity more than anything else to do the right thing. Barrett is a mess, as I read her concurrence. Gorsuch is digging and digging and digging, and he finds fool's gold. And Roberts, he's got it all figured out. It's a tax, power of the purse, belongs to Congress, Article 1, that's it, that's over. Which, of course, is absurd. It's buffoonish. And yet, from his perspective, I suppose, and it's not a good one, it was the only way he could get 5 more votes. The all-important 6-vote majority. Why did it take so long? Because he was negotiating with individual justices, seeing what they could agree with and not agree with. It's highly political, what goes on. Highly political. For a body that's not supposed to be political. But it's a lot of interpersonal politics that go on. Barrett, what's it going to take to get your vote? Gorsuch, what do I need to do to get your vote? We'll keep it simple and direct. I'll write a concurrence. I'll raise my own issues. because I know I can count on the 3 libs on the court. They're going to vote no against Trump no matter what. Now, this is what's interesting to me. Those 3 justices, I guarantee you, if this were Obama or Biden, would have flipped, would have voted the other way. For them, that's all that matters. How can you support the New Deal, all the changes in constitutional interpretation that go with it? And yet here, you find the president overreached, when in fact, the strongest argument to me is this is a shared power. There's no red line. There's no firm line. There's no wall between the two. It is a shared power. And we're going to allow the policy debate, the politics of it, to work its way through. No. We got to get involved. Awful. Disgrace. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Here's the president. Also today about the Supreme Court decision. Cut 5. Go.
Since Liberation Day, there's about $175 billion in tariff revenue that is now in limbo. Do you have to refund $175 billion?
Think of it, Peter. Very fair question. They take months and months to write an opinion, and they don't even discuss that point. We've taken in hundreds of billions of dollars, not millions, hundreds of billions of dollars. And so I said, well, what happens to all the money that we took in? It wasn't discussed. Wouldn't you think they would have put one sentence in there saying that keep the money or don't keep the money, right? I guess it has to get litigated for the next 2 years. So they write this terrible, defective decision, totally defective. It's almost like not written by smart people. And what they do, they don't even talk about that. Your question is very basic. That was the first question I asked also to make you feel good. I said, what about all the money that we've taken in? Sir, they don't discuss that. How crazy is that?
It is crazy. It's like they're in a bubble. And they are. They're in a bubble. And so they drop this in the president's lap. A whole conglomeration of opinions. Well, there's not a central opinion other than a central conclusion under one statute. And so a president now has to decide, well, how am I supposed to handle foreign policy and national security? What statutes can we use to continue to do what I feel we need to do in order to deal with international commerce and so forth? And there are statutes, and the court knows there's statutes. So why do this? And on top of that, $175 billion that have come into our coffers as a country. How are we supposed to unravel that? Meanwhile, it took them months to come up with this cockamamie, quote-unquote, decision. Months. As money was coming in from these tariffs. You see, when you're a judge or a justice, the real-world implications of your rulings have no impact on you. On us, they do. That's why they're supposed to stay the hell out of policy. And that's why, in this case, they should have let the 2 elected branches duke it out if they chose to duke it out, because the president was not doing anything that was like extreme or dictatorial or anything of the kind. Period. I'll be right back. This segment of the podcast is exclusively sponsored by Pure Talk. Pure Talk offers great coverage and can save your family money on your wireless bill every single month. Go to puretalk.com to find the plan that's right for you. Thank you again for listening, and thank you so much for this sponsorship, Pure Talk.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. All right. Okay. Iran. Got to get used to this subject because it's not going to go away. The only way to make it go away is to take that regime out. Otherwise, that cloud's going to be hanging over our heads for the rest of our lives and the lives of your children and grandchildren. I'm not kidding. Here's President Trump today when he's asked about whether there is a message for the Iranian people. Cut 8. Go.
Do you have any message to the Iranian people?
The Iranian people in Iran or people here?
People in Iran.
They better negotiate a fair deal. They better negotiate. You know, the people of Iran are a lot different than the leaders of Iran. And it's very, very sad situation. But 32,000 people were killed over a relatively short period of time. They were going to hang 800 2 weeks ago. Hang, some by crane. They lift them up with a tall crane, and they play them around the square. They were going to hang 837 people. And I gave them the word, if you hang one person, even one person, that you're going to be hit right then and there. I wasn't waiting 2 weeks and negotiating. And they gave up the hanging. They didn't hang 837. Supposedly,
the problem is they probably shot him in the back of the head. But go ahead.
But no, I feel very badly for the people of Iran. They've lived in hell.
Yep. He knows what's going on over there. And he's a good man. And he's a good man. You know, from my perspective, you can come up with the greatest deal of deals. Oh, yeah, no nuclear weapons, no ICBMs and ballistic missiles, no more torture, no more murder. We're going to create Shangri-La all of a sudden. You know, we're going to have representative government. We're going to have the most fantastic Constitution. We're going to do all these great... See, they made this fantastic deal. Because they have no intention of complying with it. You know what North Korea did? North Korea made deals with the United States, the UN, Europe, and so forth. And they made deals and they said, okay, we're going to put an end to any pursuit of a nuclear bomb. And in exchange, we require you to denuclearize South Korea. So we denuclearized South Korea. And South Korea doesn't have any more nuclear weapons. But he kept at it. He said, well, the fine print on page 17, I think I can actually do the research. Okay, we'll give you billions of dollars in economic aid to help feed your people who you're starving to death if you will stop working on nuclear weapons. Okay. We gave him billions of dollars. He kept working on nuclear weapons. And then one day he cut off all negotiations. And he tested a missile and announced that he had a nuclear warhead. Now he has 50 nukes, 50. And he builds 6 to 7 every single year. And we are going to have to deal with that, or our children and grandchildren, because our generation and the generation before didn't have the guts to stop him when they could. The case of Iran is even easier. They're not next door to communist China. Their economy is a complete shambles. The people have risen up. They've put their lives on the line. They have no weapons. They have their voices. They have their ability to march. And they've been slaughtered and hunted down and tortured and raped and disappeared, as the Democrats like to say about ICE, which is so sickening, but nonetheless. And I cannot believe that our generation will leave to future generations the responsibility for having to confront this when this regime, well after President Trump has served his 3 years, will in fact have nuclear weapons, will in fact have ballistic missiles that can reach the United States of America. And we'll have tens of thousands of ballistic missiles and perhaps hundreds of nuclear warheads. Then what are we going to do? And for those of you who don't think they would use them, they're slaughtering their own people. Tens of thousands of them. Actually, I think much more than 32,000, but that's my calculation. You don't think they'd fire a nuclear missile at us? Of course they would. That's the whole purpose of this regime, is to destroy us, to destroy the West, to destroy Israel, to destroy Jews and Christians and Muslims who aren't true believers like quote-unquote they are. Buddhists, Hindus, atheists, secularists, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Now, I don't believe the Iranian foreign minister for 2 seconds, but he said something on a morning schmo show that did trouble me. One of the things that troubles me are these people are terrorists, and they have easy access to our media. This foreign minister, he's being interviewed by all the cable shows. It's amazing. Would Hitler's foreign minister be interviewed by all the cable shows? I'm starting to think yes. Yes. We give them platforms. We give them access. Crazy, this era. It's just crazy. Abbas Araghchi, a.k.a. Yabba Dabba Doo, Iran's foreign minister on the morning schmo, cut 9, go.
The U.S. side has not asked for zero enrichment. What we are now talking about is how to make sure that Iran's nuclear program, including enrichment, is peaceful and would remain peaceful forever. And in return, Iran, does some confidence-building measures to ensure that its program would remain peaceful.
Peaceful. They're slaughtering their own people. They keep threatening us. They're already trying to build their nukes back. They're building thousands of ballistic missiles. Anybody believe this stuff? They help fund the Muslim Brotherhood along with their dear friends, the Qataris. They fund Hamas and Hezbollah. They're responsible for 1,000 American deaths and God knows how many casualties during the Iraq War. I mean, seriously? How many people are going to believe this crap? Is that the way it seems to you? We even have Islamists in our country, from these countries. From these countries in the Middle East, not so much Iran, but from these other countries, talking about overthrowing our country right on our streets, right in their mosques, on Fifth Avenue, on Times Square, in Dearborn, Michigan, all over the country, open and notorious. They're now telling us that we can't have dogs, or we can't have dogs where we want to have dogs. Oh, it's going to get worse. It's going to get worse. Food requirements. Don't eat in front of me, and don't eat. It's Ramadan. Don't eat. We saw some of that in a couple of clips that have been released. Men coming up to girls who are walking dogs, trying to beat the dogs and slap the dogs. We see this happening all over Europe, all over Britain, all over France, all over Europe. And now we see it happening in our country. Don't worry. We just need to have confidence building. The organization CARE, a Hamas front group. We know it from FBI wiretaps at the Marriott Hotel next to the Philadelphia International Airport. And it's active. It's got chapters in every state, chapters virtually in every county. It's electing people to office. Mamdani is using CARE and other entities to put people in positions, and we're going to bring on Jon Levine, reporter with the Washington Free Beacon, who's been writing brilliantly about this to tell us exactly what's going on, particularly in New York City. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
You know what Pure Talk's favorite holiday is? President's Day, because they believe wireless service should only cost you a couple of presidents. Just a Jackson and a Lincoln, to be exact. For $25 a month, Pure Talk gives you unlimited talk, text, plenty of data. Now compare that to big wireless. They'd rather celebrate Benjamin Franklin Day so they can charge your family hundreds every month, and he wasn't even a president. That's not right. You deserve better. Pure Talk is an American wireless company that supports our veterans and invests in a U.S.-only customer service team. When you call, you're talking to someone right here at home. Pure Talk uses the same towers as the big carriers, so enjoy superior 5G coverage without the inflated price. Just $25 a month for talk, text, plenty of data, no contract, no cancellation fee. Don't wait any longer, folks. Go to puretalk.com/Levin, puretalk.com/Levin. You'll get 50% off your first month. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin to make the switch to Pure Talk. We're here with a real journalist, Jon Levine, over at the Washington Free Beacon. How are you, sir?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Well, I'd like you to tell the country exactly what's going on with Mr. Mamdani and his personnel selections. And you've written a few pieces on this, and they're absolutely shocking to me.
Yeah. I mean, look, the man is fulfilling his promises. The man is... You can't say he didn't tell us exactly what he was going to do. And what he's doing is stocking his government with radicals, many Islamic radicals, and in some cases who are affiliated with the Council on American Islamic Relations and many other far-left extremist progressive groups. There's a nexus of radical Islam and progressivism that is the common denominator of which is hatred of the West. And that is sort of the nexus point at which Mamdani sits. And all the people that are going into City Hall now are either on the psycho-progressive side or the radical Islamist side, but they all meet at loathing of the West.
And hate for the Jews, no?
Of course, yeah. That goes into loathing for the West.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Well, I just want to be very specific about it because he's appointing a lot of people who have said horrendous things about Jews in specific. And, of course, his loathing for the West. And other than you, I'm not seeing a lot of reporting on this. Are you?
I'm not. Well, obviously, the New York Times and the mainstream media is not going to cover this for obvious reasons. But even in conservative media, I think people have been slow to pick up on just how rich these targets are. I mean, it's great for me. I'm picking up gold nuggets in the sand everywhere I look. But I am starting to see more people get into the game. And just to speak to what you said earlier about hatred for Jewish people, so many officials are coming from this group called the Muslim Democratic Club of New York. And this is a group that Mamdani has been involved with for a very long time. It was co-founded by Linda Sarsour, who, her litany of anti-Semitic statements is very long. And my favorite of hers is she said she would be thrilled to die as a martyr. I mean, this is like sick stuff. Obviously, they celebrate Hamas terrorism, including the October 7th attacks. And all of the co-founders of this group are finding their ways into top positions in his administration now.
Mm-hmm. Has he appointed any... let me put it to you this way. Has he appointed any kind of normal Democrats? People that come out of the party who are not... I mean, these are people who are not just Muslim or pro-Muslim. These are Islamists. This is as radical as it gets, right? People who cheer on Hamas, people who cheer on the Muslim Brotherhood and so forth.
I think, I can't believe I'm going to say this. We really have to kind of put our faith in sort of the deep state of New York City right now, because he's appointing all these psycho radicals. And for me, I've been in New York City a long time. I know a lot of people in government. The people who are going to save us from Mamdani are the permanent bureaucratic class who are not progressive socialist radicals, and hopefully, in the true spirit of the deep state, will slow down the new agenda in New York City.
What do you make of him telling Hochul, either you put in a wealth tax or I'm going to increase massively property taxes on 3 million homeowners? Now, 3 million homeowners pretty much includes everybody in New York, no matter what their income is.
He's taking the whole city hostage. He's doing, I call it the Katie Porter, look what you made me do approach. Obviously, the first thing I would say is it's a violation of his campaign promise, right? He said, I'm only going to raise taxes on the super duper rich, $1 million a year or more. That's the Trojan horse they always do. Only the millionaires and the billionaires, just the billionaires. So obviously it's a violation of that campaign promise, and it's a way to pressure Hochul into doing the original income tax hikes that he wants by holding the city hostage. But the problem is he has to go through the city council for a property tax increase, and they're not going to do that. There's a lot of resistance to that now. And so he faces the potential of being blocked. And there's a $5 billion hole in the city budget that needs to be filled. Obviously, police are going to get defunded, but that you won't be able to get $5 billion from the police. So they're going to have to make cuts. I don't know what's going to happen, but they're running into a buzzsaw.
They're running into a buzzsaw. So I'm thinking to myself, this is the first few months of this guy's mayoralty. It's only going to get worse, isn't it? I mean, if he can't raise the funds and he's cutting the cops, he's going to turn it into quite a mess beyond what it is, isn't he?
Right. And by the way, even though he was a long-time defund the police guy, he said during the campaign he had abandoned that position, even though we all knew that wasn't really true. So there will be police defunding. But, if he doesn't get his property tax increase, or if he doesn't get his income tax increases, then I don't know where he finds the money to plug the budget deficit. And, so I was talking to a city council guy I know who said you could have something in New York in a month analogous to a government shutdown like we have in Washington, because we simply won't have money to pay people. And it's just unclear where it comes from. We're only 3 months in, and the socialists has already run out of other people's money. It only took 3 months, less than 3 months.
Well, what's amazing to me, you have Governor DeSantis, and I have him on my Sunday show on Fox, and he's talking about, look, we're going to cut property taxes. We have no income tax. People are flooding into that state, running out of places like New York and California and so forth. And he told me that the budget of New York City is larger than the budget of the entire state of Florida. Did you know that?
I did know that. Yeah, I mean, look, DeSantis, I think, is the best governor in America right now, by a mile. I mean, he's running such a tight ship in Florida, and I think the proof is going to be when we do the next census to look at the population growth here. And Texas, too. If you look at the states that are growing in population, it's these tight ship, red states, taxes are low, personal freedom is high, and the places that are losing population is New York, is California. It's impossible to buy a home. You're taxed an inch of your life. And then you talk to any politician, all they want is more. And the more goes towards funding this unsustainable permanent bureaucracy that eventually it will just collapse in on itself. Government has no money. The only money government has is what it takes out of your pocket.
Mm-hmm. And they can't find anywhere to cut except the cops. Isn't that amazing? Despite this, they've got, 8 million, 9 million people in New York City, and you've got 4.5 million people in Florida than the entire state of New York. It's so screwed up. It's just incredible to me, no?
They're going to cut. I mean, the first thing to look at for them is the cops, because his political coalition, his political base hates the police. So cutting them in a certain way is kind of easy because it doesn't upset any of his political prerogatives. Once you can't cut the cops anymore, you have to start looking at libraries or public schools.
Yeah.
It costs $42,000 a year per student in New York City.
That's crazy. Jon Levine, I want to thank you. We're kind of losing the connection. You're a great reporter for the Washington Free Beacon, and prior to that, the New York Post. I met you once. You're a good man. Keep it up. We'll be right back. You know what Pure Talk's favorite holiday is? President's Day, because they believe wireless service should only cost you a couple of presidents. Just a Jackson and a Lincoln, to be exact. For $25 a month, Pure Talk gives you unlimited talk, text, plenty of data. Now compare that to Big Wireless. They'd rather celebrate Benjamin Franklin Day so they can charge your family hundreds every month, and he wasn't even a president. That's not right. You deserve better. Pure Talk is an American wireless company that supports our veterans and invests in a U.S.-only customer service team. When you call, you're talking to someone right here at home. Pure Talk uses the same towers as the big carriers. carriers, so enjoy superior 5G coverage without the inflated price. Just $25 a month for talk, text, plenty of data, no contract, no cancellation fee. Don't wait any longer, folks. Go to puretalk.com/Levin, puretalk.com/Levin. You'll get 50% off your first month. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin to make the switch to Pure Talk.
Nobody says it better than Mark Levin.
I'll go with what Mark Levin said, because nobody could say it better.
Call in now at 877-381-3811.
Now, it's funny to watch these leftist billionaires and these leftist Hollywood types, how they jump ship when it comes to their own money. When it comes to their own money, they push Democrats, they push Bernie Sanders types or Newsom types or Kamala Harris types, whatever it is. Big taxers, redistribution of wealth. They donate to them. They have donation fundraising events for them. They go public for them. And here we have Breitbart telling us about Steven Spielberg, who's a billionaire. Steven Spielberg has said goodbye to Hollywood. And he joined the growing list of billionaires fleeing California ahead of a hefty new proposed wealth tax, as Gavin Newsom remains committed to taxing the state into prosperity. The Daily Mail, and they have some answering to do about their reporter and Tucker Carlson, utterly unethical and deceiving the readership. They report their director bought a home in the iconic San Remo Co-op in New York City overlooking Central Park. See, they don't have a wealth tax yet. Mamdani's demanding one. And if they get one, you know Spielberg will take off for another city. Other high net worth individuals such as Meta's Mark Zuckerberg, Google co-founder Sergey Brin, have also fled the Golden State, and more are tipped to follow in an effort to escape punitive taxation measures so warmly embraced by Newsom. We're talking about, as Nolte writes over there at Breitbart, a retroactive tax, a wealth tax on billionaires. Retroactive tax that would include those who fled the state. How sick is this? The outlet provides background to the new tax and its broad impact. The much maligned proposal would see residents with a net worth of more than $1 billion pay a one-time tax worth 5% of their assets. If the bill passes, a vote due in November, and you know it will, this is the mob. Throw them to the mob. It will retroactively affect billionaires living in the state January 1, 2026, and would include stocks, artwork, intellectual property in the calculation. That means movies and books, artwork hanging on your walls, maybe the coin collection or stamp collection, your stocks, even though you haven't sold them yet, the value of your stock. It's a disaster. This is evidence of a state that's not just in decline, it's falling off the cliff. The movement is an attempt to recoup funds for essential services as health care and education. I wouldn't use the word recoup funds. It's not recouping funds, it's stealing funds. Spielberg's spokesperson said the primary reason for his Big Apple move was to be closer to his family. Well, of course. Closer to his family. Meanwhile, Zuckerberg and his wife, pediatrician Priscilla Chan, are considering buying a $200 million waterfront mansion in South Florida, the Wall Street Journal first reported. Oh, yeah. Now, the property is located in Miami's Indian Creek, a gated barrier island that is an alcove of the wealthy and the influential, including Amazon founder Jeff Bezos, Kushner, and Ivanka. Representatives for Zuckerberg declined to comment. If approved, the new tax would reportedly raise Roughly $100 billion, although no exact economic reasoning has been given for arriving at that figure. I don't care what it raises initially, but it will have a tremendous negative effect going forward in that state. Nobody's going to want to move there. Critics say it would simply drive the wealthy, their companies, and their dollars out of the state. Yes, that's pretty obvious. Indeed, it was Britain's wartime leader, Sir Winston Churchill, who famously argued against high taxation as a means of somehow making society fairer, he said. He said, for a nation to try and tax itself into prosperity is like a man standing in a bucket and trying to lift himself up by the handle. But do we miss people like Churchill, don't we? Although, according to Carlson and his ilk, it was Churchill who started and prolonged World War II. Did you know that? Did you know that? Oh, yeah. Lunatic. Lunatic. Yet, another very wealthy person, Goldman Sachs CEO bucks anti-Trump media with upbeat 2026 economic forecast. Our friends at MRC Newsbusters, Joseph Vasquez. CNBC Squawk Box, the CEO of Goldman Sachs, blew a gaping hole in the never-ending media outrage about the Trump economy. Asked by co-host Joe Kernan for his 2026 economic forecast, David Solomon emphatically replied that the macro setup is quite good. I agree with that, which shatters doom narratives being promulgated by the Constipated News Network and the New York Slimes and others desperate to make Trumponomics political taboo. You have this combination of strong fiscal stimulus in the United States, he said. We have a huge deregulatory swing in the U.S., also constructive because when the regulatory pendulum swings hard the other way, people have to invest more in meeting with those regulatory obligations. And when the regulatory pendulum swings back to a deregulatory posture, he said, resources can be freed up to invest in more productive parts of the business. This seems like a lot of common sense, which is why the Democrats reject it. In other words, Trump is gutting the over-bloated federal regulatory state and is providing an economic tailwind. That's true. Solomon highlighted findings by Goldman Sachs economist Jan Hatzius, which projected 2.9% real growth this year, 5% nominal. The consensus, according to Solomon's estimation of economics projections, is that we could see better than that. So you've got really strong tailwinds for good nominal and real growth, and I think a lot of activity. You know, there's three problems. One, the Democrats in Congress who are trying to sabotage this economy. When they shut down the government as they have, it has a real economic effect on the bottom line. Even if it's a small part of the government, which it is, but nonetheless, it has an effect. Number two, it's only now that the president was able, or is able, soon, to put his man as chairman of the Fed. So you had Powell, who was pretty much sabotaging the economy, too. And number three, now we have a majority on the Supreme Court through a real mumbler of an opinion that is creating havoc with the $175 billion that the country has received as a result of the tariffs. So you have these institutions that are enshrined, they're dug in. We're making it difficult to grow the economy. But bolstering Solomon's optimism was the Bureau of Labor Statistics February 13 report showing inflation easing to 2.4%. Of course, that defied the experts because the experts are always full of crap. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
You know what Pure Talk's favorite holiday is? President's Day. Because they believe wireless service should only cost you a couple of presidents. Just a Jackson and a Lincoln, to be exact. For $25 a month, Pure Talk gives you unlimited talk, text, plenty of data. Now compare that to Big Wireless. They'd rather celebrate Benjamin Franklin Day so they can charge your family hundreds every month, and he wasn't even a president. That's not right. You deserve better. Pure Talk is an American wireless company that supports our veterans and invests in a U.S.-only customer service team. When you call, you're talking to someone right here at home. Pure Talk uses the same towers as the big carriers, so enjoy superior 5G coverage without the inflated price. Just $25 a month for talk, text, plenty of data, no contract, no cancellation fee. Don't wait any longer, folks. Go to puretalk.com/Levin, puretalk.com/Levin. You'll get 50% off your first month. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin to make the switch to Pure Talk. To me, there's something really wrong about people, especially influential people, wealthy people, who bring in this devastation into a community, pushing radical agendas like Soros and these actors and actresses. And then when it hits the wall, when it hits the fan, and we all know it will, then they leave. They leave the country, they leave the state for another place. They've unleashed this impoverishing ideology, and then they run from it. Like locusts. That's why I get disgusted by this. Look at Northern Virginia. It's all blue. The counties have all turned blue, dark blue. People coming in from Washington, D.C., coming in from Maryland, coming in from Afghanistan, wherever. But I'm talking about the Democrats who move into Republican areas and then destroy them. There are people in Florida, I've talked to them at the diners, including teachers, people like that. They have these big pensions they get out of New York City or Albany or wherever. And then they move to Florida. And I asked them, why do you move to Florida? Because there's no income tax. And I said, who the hell do you think's paying your pension? The people in New York. The suckers are back there in the cold winter, so forth and so on, paying former government employees who go to Florida because they don't want to pay an income tax, but somebody's paying a heavy tax to subsidize these pensions because it's not all coming out of people's contributions when they were working. That doesn't add up. And that's why the North and these northern cities go broke. They keep raising taxes, It's like almost like a drug fix, a drug addiction. Very much like it, in my view. I've got a lot of clips here, Mr. Producer, put together of this Tucker Carlson and Mike Huckabee, but I'm on two minds of this. Number one, I don't want to give his podcast my massive audience and platform. But number two, Huckabee really is a class act that runs circles around this guy. And in fact, Carlson keeps repeating himself and pressing his points. He's very snarky. And Huckabee's cool as a cucumber. Cool as a cucumber. But I don't think I'm going to do that. Because I don't want to give him the attention that he craves. That all mental patients crave, quite frankly. And I think at this point he is a mental patient, or he should be. Just one man's opinion. As far as Mamdani goes, you now have black New Yorkers who are rallying. They were rallying yesterday. They don't want their property taxes raised. Because it's not about billionaires and millionaires. That would be bad enough for chasing people out of New York City. Now you've got people who have nowhere else to go. They can't afford to go anywhere else. They have their homes. They've worked hard to purchase their homes. Some people in these homes they're retired. They're on fixed incomes. And here he comes, Mr. Affordability. Mr. Affordability, ladies and gentlemen. And he wants to raise your property taxes in New York, all of you, all of you, by around 10%. And here's people objecting to this. Cut 17, go.
The mayor, with the greatest respect, in every campaign speech, in every debate where you engage, we opened our ears to listen. Now today, accept the words echoing from us now. Do your job as mayor and leave our taxes out.
Saving only two options. You're saying if we don't tax the rich, then I got to increase property taxes. We are not a pawn in Southeast Queens. We are not part of your negotiation tactics. Jon Mamdani, you are out your mind.
I've told you folks over and over and over again in the course of over more than 20 years. They talk about taxing the rich. You hear Bernie Sanders do it all the time. They're coming after you. They want you to vote for them, and it always winds up in the same place. Whether it's an aggressive form of communism or fascism, it's you, the people. Whether it's the Democrat Party and their lies, the costs are borne by you, the people. And there he is, Mr. Marxist Islamist affordability. Wants to drive up your property taxes, one of the biggest bills you pay every damn year. He's after you. I'll be right back.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. Somebody told me we're not taking enough calls, and I don't mean management. I mean somebody on the street. I try to take calls every day. Doesn't always work out that way. And when I try to take calls, I usually take them in the last half hour. Sometimes we'll have a guest, and it bleeds over to the last half hour. But I just told Mr. Producer, let's start collecting people who are interested in calls, and we'll do a little bit more of that on this Friday evening, if that's what you would like to do. Please don't forget, tomorrow night, Life, Liberty, and Levin, very important program, Saturday, 8 p.m. Eastern. Please set your DVR, so you never have to think about it. Same with Sunday. The old Sunday show is still here, 8 p.m. Eastern time, and we're going to have Dennis Prager, which is such a touching interview from such a brilliant man. And speaking of brilliant men, America's governor, we call him Ron DeSantis. And as a resident of that state, I want to tell you, that's not puff. This is a serious, serious man. I also want to thank you. We launched our Liberty's Voice video podcast this week, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. It will be, from now on, unless there's a holiday or I have some event, Monday, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays. Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays. So this Monday, I hope you'll check in. And really, you can go to YouTube, and you can sign up there and subscribe there. It's absolutely free. Liberty's Voice. And Rumble, you can follow there, as they call it, sign up. But you can always view it. Just enter it, Liberty's Voice, Mark Levin. It'll pop up. And I do these programs for you. I think you're going to like them. They're kind of long form. We're getting into some very, very interesting subjects on the 250th anniversary. Of course, we're going to get into other things off and on as well. We have maximum freedom, complete freedom. And this is where the people without character and the people who are grifters, I think, ultimately destroy themselves. Because there's no governor on their mouths, there's no governor on their conduct. And deep down, the evil that they have, whether it's Christian hatred or Jew hatred or they're grifters, or whether they're foul-mouthed at home and starts to show in their podcast, you're going to see it. I'm not going to talk to you on my video podcast any differently than I would talk to my family members. In other words, there's not going to be all these cuss words. I'm not going to, do anything as these other people do for a buck. I despise the racism and the bigotry. I despise the anti-Semitism and the Christian bashing. I despise the phony support for radical Islamism. Many of these people are on the take, whether it's by intermediaries, billionaires, whomever they are. They are not transparent. They're psyops, they're plots. Some of them truly are mentally ill. And some of them are just racist, bigots, and bastards. So if you want some normalcy, if you want somebody that loves this country, somebody that shares your values and your patriotism, that's me. And so again, on Rumble, we're doing fantastic on Rumble. We really are, and I want to thank everybody. We have over 650,000 followers there. YouTube is not something we ever really focused on, but we're starting to focus on that. And so they're both available. We're going to be expanding, aren't we, Mr. Producer? We're going to put the program on Apple and on Spotify as well, and perhaps other platforms in the near future. And if you want to know about the program, you can go to virtually any social platform, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, X, and all the rest of it. Slowly but surely, we are building this project. Again, it's because I'm financing it, so I don't have $15 million coming in from some guy with connections from Qatar funding my program the way Tucker Carlson did. We're not doing that stuff. We're not doing that stuff. All right. Let's take some calls here. People want to get in. Let's go to David, Mount Olive, New Jersey, the great WABC. David, how are you?
I'm doing quite well, minus today's ruling, Mark. And by the way, shalom. I'll be converting to Judaism soon. Oh. Thank you. I've been dragging my feet on that. Yeah, it's a long story, but I really will say this. I will vote even after I pass away. I'll still vote, sadly. But yes. a lot of people are gonna be voting or sitting this one out in November. And today's ruling by Chief Justice Roberts, while it's painful temporarily, I appreciate what President Trump has said, as well as the Secretary saying about the alternatives. But I really can't help but think that this is a form of deliberate sabotage. The State of the Union is on Tuesday, and while everyone would want this decision to come out immediately, I, for one, I'm younger, you're older and wiser, but I'm tired of this. This man has dealt with a lot, and a lot of the Republican Party leadership in the House and in the Senate and in the Republican Party, in my estimation, are not lifting a finger. They could cut a lot of judges' budgets, and unless I'm mistaken, Mark, I don't think any judge has had their court, if they're not going to get impeached, as the rhinos tell us, even though it's an election year, then cut their funding. As you say, Congress is the power of the purse, and they're not using it. So I really
actually like that point, which is okay. We do have the power of the purse, and we've decided to cut the judiciary by 10%. Why not?
Hoorah.
They also have the power to rearrange the jurisdictions so they can break up this radical cabal in Washington, D.C. They can do that. They can take certain subject matters, I should say, away from the judiciary, give it to a different judicial branch or something of that sort. They can do those things. They have that power. They ought to do something, is your point, and I agree with you.
It's so frustrating. I hope Congress will act. And
they won't. They won't act. I tell you, take a look at, go online, take a look at Convention of States. I'm quite serious about that. Or take a look at my book. You don't have to buy it. I guess you can get it somewhere. The Liberty Amendments. And they really are intended to create some institutional limits and change to what's been taking place and get us back to what the founders intended. I think you might find that interesting. I wish I had a copy to send you, but I don't. All right, brother. Great call. Appreciate you, David. Let's keep going. Let's go to Blake, Tyler, Texas. The great KTBB. Go right ahead.
Thanks for taking my call, Mark. This is really important. I'm so disappointed in the Supreme Court's ruling against the president's ability to utilize tariffs to help manage the defense of our great nation. If we can't put up a firewall against economic activities that are weakening the strength of our nation, then what can the president do? The president issues orders. That's what the president can do. The judges can only make rulings. If the president wills, he can ignore the judge's rulings.
Not really. Not really.
The third branch of government that can weigh in on it, and the judges can throw it back to Congress, and Congress can tell the president, well, we side with the judges if you don't.
Well, now that I agree with. That's been my point. The legislative and the executive branch duking it out, and that's perfectly fine with me. And then we have a say, we the people, consent of the governed. But the way this court conducted itself, to me, really was without authority. It was reckless, and I don't care what anybody's position is on tariffs. That's a policy and political question. We can have that debate. But the problem for me is the way they conducted themselves here, which was really wrong. Another great call. Thank you, my brother. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Let us continue with the people, shall we? As we dip into the gene pool. Karen, Brookings, South Dakota, the great KELO. Go.
Hi. I'm talking about the tariffs. And I think sometimes they could have called law school Eagle School because it's a lot of egocentricity instead of justice. Yeah. But I believe Taft was the man that was president who got America back on its feet by imposing tariffs. And when
I would say you might be right, but I know McKinley was certainly one of them.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure if it was, of the president's name. I just think that it was Taft, but McKinley's fine. But the fact is, history is history. We had predecessors who used the tariffs to save America, and extreme conditions call for extreme actions, and certainly the way they've thrown taxpayers' money around without representation. We certainly need to pay off the national debt, and I think tariffs is a good way to start doing that. And
see, for me, the policy argument aside, it's not for the court to decide this. And to demonstrate how discombobulated they were when they decided to take on what is essentially a policy issue is that they really don't have a rational stream of constitutional thought in this 177 pages. And I thought that Kavanaugh set them straight, that Clarence added a great deal of clarity with respect to his history lesson that he provides them. But, you got the three Mouseketeers, the radicals, and then you have Barrett, who I've decided is a thin-skinned egomaniac. You have the Chief Justice, who is very worried about his press. And you have Gorsuch, who's a surprise from time to time. Very disappointing in this case, that's for sure. Any of that makes sense?
Well, it's supposed to be the government of the people, and we've had a real onslaught of overreach of government. And when we have a judicial system that you can't approach unless you have an attorney, and the process is so imposed upon by precedents or cases, or if you don't have a typewriter, I guess you've lost your rights, because in our state you have to type a brief, you can't just write it out. But
all right.
Our judicial system has to be approachable, and we have a lot of judges that just get
I think our judicial system needs to know what lane it's supposed to be in, and apparently it doesn't, even with these individuals on the Supreme Court. There's some who understand that, and this was a big case in the sense that it affects our economy, it affects our foreign policy, diplomacy, national security, our debt situation, and so forth and so on. It really was not the place of this court, the 6 members, to substitute their own views for that of the president, and they did so in a very awkward way, a very confounding way, and it took a long time because what took place behind closed doors wasn't pretty. That's why. Thank you very much for your excellent call, Karen. How about we go to Dave in Fort Lauderdale, Florida? Sirius XM Satellite. Dave, how are you?
Oh, pretty good, Mark. Let me put you on regular phone.
That helps.
Yeah, the ruling that they ended up making, they overstepped their boundaries.
I agree.
There is precedence from prior presidents on tariffs and keeping our sovereignty secure in financial ways.
Mm-hmm.
It
All right.
doesn't make much sense. They are not following the Constitution.
Well, they'll tell you they are, power of the purse. The problem is there's another part of the Constitution in Article 2, Section 8, which is the broad powers of the president in foreign policy. And it's not like this country is new on tariffs. We funded the federal government with, among other things, tariffs before we had a federal income tax, and that amendment passed. And, of course, tariffs have been laid by presidents, even without so-called statutory authority. And the Smoot-Hawley law from 1930 is a very big law, and I expect the president will eventually pick that up and dust it off and may well use it. He may be forced into that position. I think the president was trying to use the law in a way where he wouldn't have to pull in all these other laws, that is, all these other statutes, but the court's going to force him to do otherwise, and that's what he's going to do. And he sounded very angry to me today because of what some of these justices did, and he was right. When you read the dissenters, when you read what especially Kavanaugh wrote, and then Clarence Thomas and Alito joined them, it's an overwhelmingly strong argument that they're making as a matter of the Constitution, as a matter of federal law, as a matter of the text of the federal law, and as a matter of the history of this republic and the use of tariffs by a president of the United States. I felt like the others were flailing around. They were semantical. They were cherry-picking. A couple of them were arguing with each other. It was really kind of embarrassing. All right, my friend. Thank you for your call, too, Dave. Let's keep rolling. Let's go to Roger, Houston, Texas. The great KSFA. Go right ahead.
Good evening, Mark. I've visited and lived in several countries in the Middle East over a course of many years, including Israel, Shabbat Shalom. And I currently have a house in Turkey that I would love to return to, but I cannot as long as the evil dictator Erdogan is in there.
Well, maybe you can rent it out to Carlson. I'm sure he'd be welcome with open arms.
Well, goodness. I first went to Turkey shortly after Gulf War when Turgut Özal was in charge. It was a wonderful place. And then I watched the creeping Islamo-Marxism come in through Erdogan and his AK Partisi. And when prior to Erdogan, Turkey used to have a revolution about every 10 years, and it was more of a coup d'etat. And at that time it was called Sol Sağ. Sol means left in Turkish, Sağ means right. And someone would walk up to you in the street and say, Sol Sağ. And if you answered wrong, you would get punched or worse. And then Erdogan got in, and it has become no Sol Sağ. It's Islamists or Kemalists. And the Kemalists were the people that were dedicated and lived by the Kemal Mustafa Ataturk, and the Islamists were the complete opposite. They did not want any secularism, no connection to the West. And that is Erdogan. And when I see President Trump sitting next to Erdogan saying, he's a great guy, and I mean, oh my goodness. He didn't go what I went through in Turkey. And let me tell you about the dogs. I had a beautiful golden shepherd there, and they killed it.
Yeah, they hate dogs. They hate women, too, by the way. Thanks for your call, my friend. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin, speaking to the 4 out of 5 Americans who are literate at 877-381-3811.
I want to get back to our callers. We have a lot of callers tonight. And the main reason could be is because I said we're going to take callers tonight. Let's see here. Here we go. Scott, Rockford, Illinois, the great WROK. Go.
Hello, Mark. Wanted to discuss with you today in terms of Iran. I had an opinion when you had former Speaker McCarthy on several weeks ago on Friday. And my first opinion was I was very disappointed with Trump when he says, I'm going to send help, and he didn't send help. I consider it almost like myself as being a grandpa that I'm going to go out and give ice cream to my grandkids, and I never do it. So that there's a matter of delay. And so at that point, I was disappointed with Trump. The second point that I was going to make was that I had the opinion that what Trump may be doing with Iran may be similar in the approach of what he did with in Nicaragua, the Maduro, that he gives them a bunch
Venezuela,
of deadlines.
Venezuela.
In Venezuela, gives them a bunch of deadlines, and then when he doesn't meet them, then he takes further action. But one of the other aspects that I almost like to discuss, who actually is giving counsel to Trump? I put this into biblical context. When I look at other counselors, I consider the story of Absalom and how David fled from Absalom, and then David basically told the priest to go back, and when the priest came back and told him the additional advice, David is as strong as a bear. Wait, you can't go ahead and do it. That actually was defeating in terms of Absalom, and they actually gave good counsel. But also another type of counsel is when Rehoboam, the son of Solomon, took counsel between the wise men or the young men. He decided to take the young men, and that turned to be disaster. I kind of wonder if Trump at this point is listening to ambassadors of other states in the Middle East and listening to somebody other than Israel. So I wonder who actually is listening counsel to.
Well, I can't answer that. I don't know. We do know that there are other countries that are trying to influence the president in a different direction. We do know that there is an isolationist, very dangerous anti-American wing led by people like Tucker Carlson and Thomas Massey, radical libertarians, and sort of a woke Reich, R-E-I-C-H, given their attitudes and their mindsets and so forth. I don't believe it's in the best interest of the United States to pretend that there's not a regime building intercontinental ballistic missiles that can reach our continental United States, and that they're seeking to build nuclear warheads to put on top of it with the assistance of North Korea and China. I just don't think pretending that's not happening and blaming people who are trying to draw attention to it so we can deal with it before it's too late so our children and grandchildren don't have to face it. I don't view that as a warmonger. I view that as a peacemonger. And so we're going to find out soon enough if the appeasers and the pacifists and the isolationists win the day, or if the patriotic Americans who really care about the lives of their fellow Americans and future generations, and the fact that our generation needs to deal with this so the next generation doesn't have to, we're going to see which side prevails. I pray to God it's our side. I really do. Because history shows that if it's not, that's how you get into world wars, and that's how you get into mass death and these conflicts. Thank you for your call, my friend. Excellent. Let's go to Sean, Huntsville, Alabama, Sirius XM Satellite. How are you, sir?
I'm good, sir. Thank you for allowing me on your show today.
Well, of course. Now, how's University Avenue doing there? Isn't that Boulevard?
Oh, it's doing very well. This place is exploding.
I know. It's like the main drag. And one of the things I like about Huntsville, the restaurants are great. And you got all kinds of restaurants. You got wonderful barbecue. Is Gibson still around?
Yep.
Man, oh, man.
I haven't been there, so no.
I love Gibson's if it's still there. Yep. All right, go right ahead, my friend.
Yes, my question for you today is that this Supreme Court opinion that came out today It's obvious there was a lot of political maneuvering going on. It didn't really make a whole lot of sense. Do you think maybe they're doing some posture for an upcoming opinion that they're going to be issuing on birthright citizenship? Because in the grand scheme of things, today's political opinion it's going to be forgotten in 10 years. It's not that large. They said he wasn't allowed to use one statute, but there's a dozen others that he can, and it's not really a huge issue. But
it's huge in this sense. There's about 4 others that he can, and it's in this sense, the predictability and precedent. A president has to know what he's able to do, so he's going to try some other statutes. That'll be challenged. That'll go to the Supreme Court. And then what is the Supreme Court going to do? So this will be very interesting. But you raise a very interesting question as well, birthright citizenship. I'm worried about it. I don't think Barrett has any guts. I don't think Roberts has much guts. I could be wrong. I pray I am. We will see. Compared to birthright citizenship, the political fallout will be 1,000 times worse under the birthright citizenship decision in this sense. If they rule for birthright citizenship and they know damn well that that's not in the Constitution and they know damn well that's not in any statute, the court will destroy its integrity. And half the country or more will know that it's not serious. It's just a political Politburo. If it rules correctly, they know that they're going to face, the bullhorns of the left. But the difference is, and I want the justices to understand this, there is a marshal service that now will protect them. And a Department of Justice who will arrest and prosecute people who violate the federal law that prevents them from harassing and threatening public officials, including and especially judges and Supreme Court justices. They need to know that. But I think your sense of this is correct, that this is the hottest of hot-button issues, and they need to do the right thing. I worry about it. I really do. All right, Huntsville?
The way I was looking at it, I was just thinking maybe they're going to throw the lower IQ newscasters some red meat today.
I don't think that's what's going on. I don't think one has anything to do with the other. I don't think they're thinking that way. I really don't.
No?
I really don't.
Okay. All right, well, thank you for taking my call, sir. I appreciate it.
All right, take care of yourself. Let's go all the way to Portland, Maine, a very nice area, the great WGAN. How are you, Paul?
Just honored that you took my call. Always appreciate. Hello?
Yeah, you got it. My pleasure.
Hello?
Yeah.
Okay, just honored that you took my call, and always appreciate what you do. Please keep doing your good work.
Thank you.
I'm having trouble with the Supreme Court. Feels inconsistent to me in this ruling because they regularly support that Congress can delegate the power to collect taxes to the administrative branches of government. For example,
I've made this point repeatedly on this program, and I made this point repeatedly on Fox. That's correct. They delegate the power to pass laws, make laws, and hence raise taxes to this bureaucracy they create that's housed within the executive branch. And so you're quite correct. And they did that really over a course of decades, but they did it in a very expansive way, an aggressive way, in order to uphold the New Deal. And I've already said, and I've explained over and over again, you're correct, that how was that constitutional, but what Trump did is not? Is that your point?
Recently, the FCC in 2025, they ruled the FCC can collect taxes, and people were saying that's unconstitutional for the FCC to collect taxes because only the Congress has the power to collect taxes.
So you know how the court dealt with this? It utterly ignored it.
Sided with the FCC.
No. All right, let's talk about it now. You know how the court dealt with this? It utterly ignored the main issue, which is that the bureaucracy is regulating, raising taxes, that is really an unconstitutional delegation of power to these entities within the executive branch. In so many ways, it's wrong. I have got to go. Thank you for your call. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Well, it's been a great week with you here on Talk Radio, ladies and gentlemen. This is the mothership. I want to thank all of our affiliates and satellite radio and all the others for carrying this program, and most of all, you in the audience for listening. God bless each and every one of you. We go to America every Friday in honor of you. Here we go. Two tremendous programs this weekend. Tomorrow night, Life, Liberty, and Levin. Sunday night, 8 p.m. Eastern. Please set your DVR. Don't miss them. You're going to love them. And we have really fantastic guests as well, including Dennis Prager. Great monologues as well. The week ends now. The weekend begins now as well. We salute our armed forces, police officers, firefighters, emergency personnel. We salute the Border Patrol. We need to say, our truckers, and we salute the men and women in Ukraine, the men and women in Israel, the men and women in Iran, and you, the American people. Good night, Spritey and Griffey and Pepsi and Smokey. Good night, Zelda and Gigi and Indy and Patton and Rory. Good night, Marty and Barney. Good night, Dad and Mom. We're doing everything we can to hold down the fort. Good night, Leo and Joe and Bernie. Good night, Teddy and Lou and all the other great patriots out there. And you, Mr. and Mrs. America, what would we do without you? Have a fabulous weekend. I'll see you tomorrow night.